it doesn't have to be a painful process. And if it's done right, it can lead to really good results at the end, just like anything else. The main idea of what we're going to be talking about tonight is when we look at dating and relationships, is a false reality or an unreality. Okay? Good marriage is like heaven. Okay? Good marriage is like heaven. If you see the picture here, we're going to just kind of do it off the iPad today, okay? But good marriage is like heaven. All right? And we see in the book of Revelation how the New Jerusalem is married. It's really representative of the church, and it's joined to the bride, as the bride to Christ. And we're told that this New Jerusalem, this new heaven, it's Paul tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 2 that no eye has seen, no ear has heard, no mind has conceived what God has prepared for those who love him. Okay? He tells us that heaven is a beautiful place. Okay? And relationships and marriage can be a really beautiful place. And that's why people go through the process, this kind of tough process. When it's done right, it's a good thing. Yes?
I have a quick question. Can you just clarify what the process, like, what do you mean by dating? Like,
Oh, we're going to come to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We're going to talk about that a little bit. All right. Revelation chapter 21, verse 4 tells us that in heaven, he will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed away. And that kind of like mourning and crying and death, that's the process, if you will, of dating done wrong. Okay? There's a lot of tears, there's a lot of pain, there's a lot of mourning, there's a lot of hurt when it's done wrong. But we're hoping tonight to talk about how to do it right, because we don't want people to lose arms and legs and hearts, if you will. According to Wikipedia, and I know you never quote Wikipedia ever in a research paper, but in the truth, we can quote Wikipedia. All right? Wikipedia tells us that dating, just to clarify, what dating is. Okay? Because there's a lot of confusion. The term is thrown around really loosely. But the word dating, according to Wikipedia, says it's a form of courtship. And courtship, let me just kind of come off to a little tangent for you real quick. Courtship is the period in a couple's relationship which precedes their engagement and marriage. Okay? So we've got courtship is that period right before engagement and marriage. All right? So dating is a form of courtship. It's a type of it, consisting of social activities. Right? We could kind of come up with the same kind of definition. It just wouldn't sound as intelligent. Not that not all of you are that intelligent. Some of you are, some of you aren't. But it's going to sound good the way Wikipedia says it, okay? It's a form of courtship consisting of social activities done by two persons with the aim of each assessing. There's an assessment going on, right? You're checking the other person out, seeing can it work? The other's suitability as a spouse, okay? Wikipedia kind of says doesn't have to be a spouse, because in the 21st century, now you can just kind of coexist and cohabitate. You don't have to get married, okay? But we're going to kind of leave that part off for our discussion tonight. While the term has several senses, it usually refers to the act of doing what? Meeting up and engaging in some mutually agreed upon, hopefully it's mutually agreed upon, okay? Social activity in public together as a couple. That's a date, okay? That's what dating is, okay? So for the sake of our conversation over the next 4 weeks, that's what we mean by dating. It's going out with another person, mutually agreed upon, public place, for the sake of getting to know that person, to assess should or shouldn't it go somewhere. Okay?
What's the difference between this and courting? Let's court.
Courting is courting is a type of dating. It's a form of, okay? Courting tends to be a little bit further along, and it's a little bit more formal at that point, okay? And specifically for marriage. All right. Yes. Yes.
But nobody starts out courting. Like, it doesn't work
Right.
that way.
So dating, that's what I'm saying. Dating, you can when you're courting someone, you're also dating them. But when you're dating someone, you're not necessarily courting them. It hasn't reached the point of courtship yet. All right? We're going to be talking about two main phenomena tonight, okay? Phenomenon number one is the movies never happen. And we'll come to the second phenomenon in a bit.
So you're saying the stages like up until the point of marriage are dating, courtship, engagement, marriage.
Yes, but okay. So Samir and Madha, when they were getting to know each other, maybe Samir and Madha is not a good example, but I'm going to use them as an example anyway. All
We were
right.
dating for 10 years.
All right. So they were dating, courting. The thing is, between dating and courtship, there's a fuzzy line between the terminology. Okay.
Okay.
Dating and courtship is sometimes used interchangeably, sometimes it's not, depending on who is speaking it. We'll just make that more simple. So dating / courtship, engagement, marriage. All right? Just to make it simple. Because that's not really the crux of what we want to talk
You're
about.
just talking about the pre-engagement period.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
All right, the first part we're going to talk about is the movies never happened. All right, what do we mean by the movies never happened? There's a certain image that is portrayed to us in the movies, and I want to just show you the name of this book. It's called Communicating Unreality, and it's the modern media and the reconstructing of reality. Okay, there's a book that was written on how powerful the media has been able to reconstruct reality, okay? Anyone who has the technological world or is connected in the technological world were affected very powerfully by the media. And the movies paint a very pristine, certain image of what relationships and dating and marriage looks like. We live in a world that's an unreality, and you can't really see this image very well, but there's a lot of airbrushing that goes on in the movies and in the world that we live in. Yeah? So it's not a fully real world when we look at the media. You never know what you're going to get. Every couple of weeks, I open up Drudge or Yahoo News, and there's some kind of celebrity that's complaining or frustrated because their picture was airbrushed one way or the other, or wasn't airbrushed when it should have been. They were told it was going to be airbrushed, or it was. Megan Fox was complaining because one of her tattoos was airbrushed off. That was a couple weeks ago in the news. Okay, so we live in the airbrushed world. It's a non-reality world, and the power of the media to transform our reality for us has been very powerful. Okay, and they present a very fake image, if you will, and a non-reality for us. Some of the things that never happen in movies, okay? A group of attackers in a movie, what usually happens, you've got one guy in the middle, Jackie Chan in the middle, and he's surrounded by like 25 people, right? And what usually happens in the movies?
He wins.
He wins, but usually what happens is one by one they attack him, right?
Yeah.
So Makar attacks me, I beat him up, and then Corollas attacks me, and I beat him up, and then Samir attacks me, and I try to beat him up. Right? So it's one by one. That never happens. The movies never happen like that, or real life never happens like that. Also in the movies, you have usually a girl, she has on her hair up, and then she has her glasses on. She takes down her hair, takes off her glasses, and she's suddenly 9,000 times hotter than she was when she had her hair up and her glasses on. That never happens in real life. In the movies, what happens is someone runs to the airport, they jump on the jetway, and they stand in front of the airplane. Why? To tell the person they love them and they shouldn't leave, right? Whereas in real life, what we do is we pick up the phone and we call the person, right? Movies never happen. That's why it's the movies. And usually what happens in the movies is there's a certain plot or storyline that's repeated, but with different actors and actresses, some different explosions. And so tonight we want to have a reality check, okay? We want to have a little dosage of reality check because the movies can really be very confusing at times. When we're speaking about the movies never happening, we want to look at it from two parts. Number one is that relationship myths lead to unhealthy expectations. Okay? Relationship myths lead to unhealthy expectations. And the second part of that's going to be that unhealthy expectations lead to a number of consequences. Okay? So I'm going to say that one more time. We're going to go through this. Relationship myths lead to unrealistic expectations, and unrealistic expectations lead to a number of consequences that we're going to discuss. Okay? Number one myth is that it should just happen with no outside help or suggestions, especially not from your parents or siblings or close friends. Okay? That's myth number one when dealing with relationships. It should just happen. No one should be involved in the process. Okay? Don't ever listen to anyone's advice or suggestions. Okay? It just happens very kind of like you just mix a couple of molecules together, it just happens. Okay? But there should never be anyone else involved in the process. Don't ever listen to any advice or suggestions from anyone, especially your parents. Especially your parents. Myth number two is that they're not your type. Okay? Don't even consider giving it a chance. Never consider giving that person or that type of chance. Okay? In other words, you just got some pictures here. You've got like a big dog and a little mini dog, okay? You've got a big person and a little skinny person, okay? They're not my type. That person, she's from Egypt, that would never work for me, okay? He's too old for me. He's not my type, okay? We put like certain limitations based on what we think our type is. That person knits and they have a knitting blog. They would never work for me, okay? Okay? All right? So there's a certain type that we create and we say that person or that type would never work, and we would never even consider giving something like that a chance. A lot of times someone will come and they'll say, you know, my parents suggested this person to me, okay? And we just completely closed the door. It's not my type. Either because of number one, because it came from our parents, or because of the type of person that it came from our parents, and that person, they're from Egypt, or they're a couple years older, or their education, whatever it might be. Okay? Myth number three. Feeling or expressing jealousy shows that you care and love each other. Okay? So you have this image of this car where the woman is standing there and she's spray painted, hope she was worth it. All right? She's showing how much she loves the guy by spray painting, vandalizing his car. All right? And the image next to it says, I'm not stalking you, just watching you all the time. Okay? Jealousy is an expression of love. That's myth number three. Whereas in reality, jealousy reveals insecurities rather than love. Myth number four. Marriage will make you happy. That's a huge myth. Marriage will make you happy. Okay? There's a nice plate of bacon sitting on it. It says you can't buy happiness, but you can buy bacon, which is about the same thing. We think that by buying food or clothes or the pinnacle of it, which is a relationship, a marriage, that's what makes us happy. And the reality is happiness doesn't come from outside. Happiness or joy is an inner reality. And Psalm chapter 1 verse 3 tells us that the one who's blessed, he says, blessed is the man who walks not, who stands not, who sits not. Okay, and that word blessed really means happy. That Greek word for blessed, makarios, means happy. Okay? Happy is he's like a tree planted by streams of water. There's an inner strength. Okay, there's an inner joy or happiness that comes. Myth number 5 is that the nature of their friends is irrelevant. Okay? The nature of their friends is irrelevant. And what we hear a lot of times is when you marry someone, you marry not only them, but their family. Okay? And there's a truth to that. However, I want to say something in addition to that. Because a person can't really choose their family, right? But you can tell what kind of person they are, not just by their family, but by their choice of friends. Okay? Their choice of friends. You can tell a lot about a person by whom they choose to be friends with. And 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 33 tells us, don't be misled, bad company corrupts good character. Myth number 6 is that my partner should intuitively know my needs. If I have to ask, it doesn't count. Okay, in the movies, they just know, right? She's sitting there, he walks in, he sees that she's tired, and he'll go and like rub her on her shoulder, and she goes, that's exactly what I wanted you to do. How did you know? You read my mind. Shut up. That never happens. Okay? If she has to tell him, it's not the same. It doesn't count.
Are we gonna discuss this myth or take them for granted?
Myth number 7, if we really love each other, nothing else matters. Okay? If we really love each other, nothing else matters. This myth is so dangerous because we oftentimes, you can't really see this, but you've got this really, you've got this guy kind of like with a pocket protector with this girl, she's like, you know, and he's like really pristine and very like straight guy, and the girl next to him, she's got like a nose ring and she's smoking and she's got like a dog collar on, and she says, I'm willing to accept everything that is meaningless if you're willing to accept that we're madly in love. In other words, nothing else in the world matters as long as we're madly and deeply in love. Okay? And what this oftentimes leads to, guys, it's a danger. I'm not saying that romantic love is not an important aspect, but what this oftentimes leads to is the false pretense that says we don't have to talk about real stuff. Okay? We don't have to talk about how we're going to live. We don't have to talk about our financial situation, how we're going to, you know, what's our philosophy on finances. Okay? We don't have to talk about social, moral, ethical views, spiritual views. Okay? As long as we are in love, nothing else in the world really matters. We're almost done with the myths. Myth number 8 is things will just naturally happen at the perfect time without any planning or discussing. In other words, the stars just line up. Everything just works out perfectly. We don't have to plan, we don't have to discuss. Okay? In the movies, it just kind of happens, right? They just happen to be at the right place at the right time. Everything falls into place. We would say it's the will of God because it happened like this. Okay? So as a result, there's no planning, no discussion about these things. And the final myth, myth number 9, is that chemistry is everything and instantaneous. When you meet the one, you just know because there's chemistry there. Okay? Chemistry is everything. Okay? Chemistry is everything. These relationship myths, among others, they lead to unrealistic expectations. And unrealistic expectations lead, I'm going to tell you 5 things. We could list probably 20 things, but for the sake of time, we're going to limit it to number 1, or to 5 things. Number 1 is they lead to disappointment. Okay? They lead to disappointment. Unrealistic expectations lead to disappointment. Let me give you an example. We have all single people, single women here. Okay. So, a woman who has been pregnant and she's going to give birth naturally, and she's told you're going to get an epidural, okay? Epidural is supposed to take away the pain of childbirth, right? There's a story that I read recently about a woman who was promised by her doctor, it's not going to hurt, you're just going to feel a little pain, a little pressure, okay? And they said this woman completely set us up, and we were like, it made childbirth and the whole process the most miserable process we could have ever expected, okay? Because they said the pain that was there was so far greater than the way she made it sound. She said, I'm not trying to scare women from having babies in the future. God bless you. God gives you the ability to handle this. Thank God it's women and not men. It's a good thing. But unhealthy expectations can oftentimes lead to disappointment, okay? And what I mean by that, guys and girls, is sometimes what happens is at the very beginning, people will give a lot of gifts. We're going to come to that in a little bit, okay? And so they'll give like a lot of gifts that first like couple of months. And there's no way you can keep up with that. It's impossible. If you keep up with that, you're going to find yourself homeless. You're about to get married, right? You don't gift now like you used to, all right? Maybe. Maybe so. You're a pharmacist. That's a different story.
Definitely not after marriage.
So when we have the wrong expectations and we set the other person up with the wrong expectations, oftentimes this can lead to disappointment. The second thing that it can lead to is confusion. Confusion, okay? We wonder why this is happening. Okay, we begin to ask ourselves, why is there a change? What happened along the process? Okay, so it can lead to confusion. The third thing it can lead to is frustration. Okay, when unhealthy expectations are put out there, it can lead to a great deal of frustration. People get angry, they get frustrated, they don't know what to do with themselves. The fourth thing it can lead to is temper tantrums. If you've ever seen a child have a temper tantrum, it is not a fun thing at all. If you've ever seen an adult have a temper tantrum, it's a hilarious thing as long as they're not having a temper tantrum at you. Okay, it's always funny as long as it's not directed at you. And the fifth thing can be trauma. Okay? Emotionally, spiritually, hopefully not physically, but you know, some of our relationships. Yes.
I want to say, I think one of the, in terms of expectations and movies and stuff, that one of the concerns is that it makes dating seem like such a smooth, you know, like it just works out, like without you even having to do anything. You're just studying, and all of a sudden the next day you find yourself, you know, in love, and it's such an easy, like, you find the right person, and it's always the first person, or you know, or the second person, you know, or if you want to have like somebody who you're comparing it to in a movie, you know.
Yeah.
And so, but the problem is that when we in our lives find that, oh my gosh, this didn't work out that way, you know, with this person, all of a sudden that person's off, like it's just not working out, it's wrong, this person's not the one. But that's because we're always comparing it to the little that we see or
In the
others see.
movies.
And then, like,
Which is a false reality.
Yeah, and some examples are like, you will never, ever see a couple. I mean, not never, ever, but you know, with two evers. You'll never, ever see a couple discussing like their financial like values in the movies.
Right.
Even though that's such an important thing, and even the way sex is portrayed in the movies, it's always like that the husband and wife always want to do it at the same time.
Right.
But that is like so different from how it is in real life. I mean, I'm studying this in class. It's it's a very different topic in real life.
Absolutely.
But I mean, you have these honeymoon like horror stories that you hear that only because what was in the movies was expected, but what ended up happening was very different.
Yeah. I mean, dating, courtship, whatever you want to call it, takes a lot of work. It's hard. Okay? And if movies are our model, we're in a big mess of trouble. Okay? I just want to spend 5 minutes on the second part, and then we're gonna zip through the second part, and we're gonna have some time for questions and discussion. And Ma'ar alluded to the second part, which is the first person you date probably won't be your last. Okay? Probably won't be your last. And this is really important because a lot of times people get in this mindset where this first person, it's their first love, the first person they really loved, and they emotionally trap the person, they kidnap the person, or they themselves are the ones that are emotionally trapped and kidnapped into this relationship. Okay? And it's really important to understand that it's not a failure if it doesn't work out. It's not. Okay? This is not a bad thing. It's a bad thing if it works out with the wrong person. Okay? That's a disaster. That's where it becomes really ugly and scary. Okay? So the first person that you court, date, go out with, cup of coffee, dinner, whatever, probably, just ballpark figure, 99% probably won't be the last. Probably will not be the person that you marry. Okay? The other thing is that oftentimes as a result of fear, unfaithfulness, to let go of this person, anyone that's got a pulse, we hold on to, man. She's got a pulse, I'm not letting her go. I don't want to end up alone. Okay? He's still breathing. He's on life support. It's okay. But I'm not letting go. Okay? And there's a great deal of fear that kind of grips us and says, you know what, you better, if you've got something, you better hold on until something better comes along. I've heard that from girls and guys. Okay? There's a fear to let go, because if they let go, what if they don't find anything as good or better? Okay, so we'll hold on to something that's absolutely disaster. It's on life support, it's dying. The third thing, he's coming with a laptop now. We're done in 5 minutes. It's me, that's all good. We're pretty much done. Yeah. No, I mean set it up. We'll go through it again, man. We'll do the whole lecture again.
Thank you. Look at the picture.
The third thing I mentioned earlier about not gifting is because the first person you go out with probably will not be the last. Man, don't go crazy on gifts. People will what I'm saying is this. People will buy like a huge gift the second day, the third day, a week, 2 weeks. They'll have an anniversary on the third week, 4 week, all right? It's the mood is out, have an anniversary, here's a gift, all right? I'm just saying don't overly gift. And if you're gonna gift, sometimes people, and the reason I'm saying this is because it can become emotionally difficult to let go of a person, okay? Because if Ma'ar and I are dating, if Ma'ar and I are dating, and he happens to buy me, like, not if we're dating, if we're just friends, and he happens to buy me a lot of gifts, I'm going to feel a sense of indebtedness to Ma'ar.
That's his problem for buying gifts.
Hold on. That's my problem too, because I've accepted the gifts.
Yeah, but you can ask.
I'll tell you something. Let me explain something to you. As a priest, I don't like accepting a lot of gifts from people. Actually, I don't like accepting gifts from people at all. Because, no, hold on a second. Because I don't want to have to feel a sense of indebtedness to that person. And I'm just saying too much too soon is not healthy.
But that's
It's not.
your problem for being naive.
Wait,
It's up to you, man.
You're saying that's the gift giver's problem?
Like, you know that it's too soon, so why would you buy them? That's
No,
exactly.
but
As
it's,
well,
but
he's
let's
saying-
be
But what I'm
honest,
saying is
but
this,
I-
if Ma'ar likes you and he gives you like rings and flowers and chocolate and books and all, maybe not books, he doesn't. A bunch of other stuff, you're gonna feel bad. He needs to be sensitive to not overly give too soon, because there's a sense of indebtedness. Like, it's not about him, it's about you also. It's about being sensitive. Guys, I'm not saying don't buy gifts, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying be cheap, all right? I'm just saying don't overly give, don't overdo it. That's it. Hold your questions because we're almost done, all right? The third thing, or the fourth thing, is don't settle. Don't settle, okay? I know this is gonna sound, it sounds really bad. You're like, what do you mean don't settle? Inevitably, one person, as they get to know the other person, is less interested in that person. Okay? One of the two, oftentimes, is less interested. And either because the person is so generous, they bought so many gifts, it's the first person, they don't want to hurt the person, they don't want the person to cry and be sad or whatever, they just kind of continue going along for the ride. Okay? And as a result, what they're doing the other person a disservice. They're not with the person because they believe that this is the right person for them. They're just kind of, if you will, lowercase settling because of some other reason. Okay? We're just about done, and we'll have, let's see, body language questions and agreements, disagreements, lawsuits, all that kind of stuff. It'll take time, all right? Two more sides. The sixth thing is that it does not have to work. It's totally healthy and good and normal if it doesn't work. Anyone here who's engaged or married, I guarantee you, the vast majority of us, the person that they're engaged or married to today is not the first person that they dated or courted. Okay? Guys or girls. Okay? They're not. Okay? So it doesn't have to work. It's okay if it doesn't. Okay? I'm saying this, guys, because this liberates you a little bit. And I know in our culture especially, it's very difficult because we feel like if, especially in the Coptic community, if you get into a relationship, man, and it becomes public, you gotta make it work. It doesn't have to. It's okay. It's better to walk away and have to deal with some comments and some things and whatnot than to remain in it because you just couldn't walk away. And then find yourself really miserable and hurting down the road. It's okay if it doesn't work. The last thing here is that one of the beautiful things about this process is that it can be a learning process. It can be a learning process. And I'm going to give you 5 quick things. Number 1 is that you can learn your strengths and weaknesses. Okay? Some of us guys, we've got some really big weaknesses that we need to learn about through this process. I'm not saying go out there and speed date, okay? But I'm saying it's okay if the process doesn't work out perfectly. You're going to find out, you know what, you have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. Maybe one of your weaknesses is that you're easily intimidated by someone, and so it kind of helps you kind of work through that process of how do you deal with an intimidating person in a relationship, a dominant person in a relationship. Maybe you're the over-dominant one, and you need to be able to work through one of your weaknesses, which is to let other people, the other person, have space in the conversation. You understand my point? But it's a good thing to learn your weaknesses and strengths. Secondly, is that it'll allow you to grow communication skills. And guys, we probably need to do at least a couple series on communication. Okay, communication is probably the most important skill, talent anyone will ever learn in life. Communication is huge. Person who has good communication skills, companies that have good, healthy communication models thrive. Okay? And relationships that are based on healthy communication grow and are healthy. Okay? Third thing is that we need to learn, we can, through the process, learn how to handle crisis. Because guys, relationships are not easy. And inevitably, there's going to be some kind of a crisis. Okay? And through that process, you can learn how to handle it. Number 4 is learn how to receive advice. Man, put it together for me now. You can't change the slide, but oh yeah, we can. Let's come to the very end. All right. So learn how to handle crises, learn how to receive advice. You don't know what you don't know. You really don't. We don't know what we don't know. So that's why it's so important through this process is to learn how to receive advice from other people. And number 5 is to learn your preferences. I talked about not setting yourself in a position where you're kind of like, you say, that's not my type, but it's okay, it's good to know your interests, okay, what works for you. What are your common interests? What are your common goals with other people? What are your common values? So I think the beauty of going through the process is it can be a learning process, We're going to be talking about some of the other things to do and not to do, and kind of how to do dating right over the next few weeks, but that's all I have for you guys today, okay? Sorry we didn't have the slides really. As much as possible, I use images because I think they capture a lot more of the idea, so I wish you guys had it, but next week, God willing, we'll have all the avian stuff set up for you guys, okay? Any questions or comments or disagreements? Yes?
I have two things that I want to quickly say. The first one was the myth about family and friends not being involved. I kind of slightly disagree with that, and from experience, has been times where it's just made it worse because of jealousy or spite, where people will falsely say things just, for those reasons, jealousy, spiteful, and it just was horrible. Like, it worked in the wrong way. That's number one. Number two was about the gift giving. I think the main reason why gift giving is not the best idea, like, from experience again, I was the gift giver. Like, I overly gifted. And I think what the main problem was that the other person just got used to it and expected it all the time instead of feeling indebted, to me. It was just something that.
So it had the opposite effect.
Exactly.
Okay, so it could go either way. What I mean by this is that, and thank you for that, but the first point is that oftentimes we think it should just happen. And no one else has to be involved in the process. And I think obviously we have to have wisdom in who we allow to be involved in the process.
I think that's the main problem.
If there are people,
Who we are allowing them.
if there are family or friends or siblings or whatever that should or shouldn't be involved, we have to have the wisdom on knowing who that person is. Okay, so good point. Good point of clarification. Yes, Ashraf.
I think every couple has to learn and practice to resolve their conflicts inside to the best they can, because that's the best way to grow and the best way to learn how to satisfy each other. You only will need outside help and not anybody. It has to be somebody who will see the conflict in a fair way.
Objective.
That has no, yes, exactly, being objective, has no interest in one side over the other.
And not biased.
Yeah,
Right.
because when this happens, there is always a problem.
Excellent. Very good.
And for the gifts,
Excellent.
the gift, there has to be two-way there. It cannot be one way. Like, it can continue, but it has to continue from both parties. And both of them, each one of them has to feel like, I'm giving this gift to show that I care about you. They really want to say thank you. But if it comes from one way, it's always end up with a problem.
The thing about gifts is that it's not a perfect science, because gifts is it's a love language. For me, gifts are not important. It's not one of my primary or even secondary love language. So I could do personally completely without gifts, completely. Okay, but I think the idea here is to not either do it too much so the person doesn't feel indebted, or so that they don't kind of just take it, or if it doesn't come, they get angry or they get upset and they just get used to it. So I think it's not a perfect science, because I could give 5 gifts for every 1 gift that comes to me, and I'm totally okay with that. Michael, and then there was a hand over here. No? Okay, Michael.
Just one thing quick about gift giving. Sometimes it's not the monetary value of the gift. Like, giving a gift that's thoughtful, like, even if it's a couple, like, yeah, a knitted hat, for someone, for that person, that goes a long way. Just because someone can afford it and the other one can't, you also have to be respectful for the other person's situation in the way they are in their life. If a person's a student who doesn't really, they're just kind of, the money they make, that's for lunch and for textbooks and stuff, be mindful of that. Like, it's not something that, don't expect an Apple computer. I mean, let's be serious. Like, the idea goes a long way.
Again, guys, I'm not saying don't give gifts.
No, I know, but I'm just saying for those
I'm saying don't overly gift, okay? Especially in the beginning. Especially like that, because that's what happens a lot of times. You've been out with a person once or twice and you just flood, one of them will flood the other person with gifts. Okay? Yes.
Can you talk about just elaborate on the jealousy part? Like, what's the distinction between that, like, and love? Because the other person might respond in a way, like the non-jealous person of the couple might respond in a way of like, oh, I need to respect, the wishes, blah, 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 but then it's like not healthy to a point, so how do we know?
Can you expand a little bit more?
Sorry, okay, so there's one jealous and one non-jealous,
Okay.
and the non-jealous wants to respond to the jealousy with, like, if they do, they don't know how to. If they don't, how should they respond? Like, if it's not healthy.
How should the non-jealous respond?
Yeah, like if it's healthy or not, how do you distinguish? Because to a point, like, you have to respect the other person when you're courting or engaged or whatever, married. Like, what's the formula to decipher what is and what is not healthy? Jealousy.
I think that there's a field there, right? We all know what a healthy jealousy feels like and what it doesn't. I think there's, when you feel possessed, you feel owned by someone. Okay, your every step, if you're just, you're standing talking to a guy and Chris just flips out, right? There's an unhealthy feeling there. Okay, and I think there's a feeling that, I don't know if there's an exact formula that I can put on it right now, but there's a feeling that just doesn't feel right, the way you're being owned, controlled, possessed, and oftentimes, people get so angry to where they'll do something really wrathful, malicious, and it's their way of saying, I'm so angry because you've hurt, but I love you, I'm jealous for you. But there's a feeling, I'll be honest, if someone is jealous in a healthy, loving way, like God's jealousy for us, it's healthy, it's loving. That word jealousy that's used, at least, it's a healthy, it's his way of saying I love you. Okay? I want you. It's not like the unhealthy jealousy that we think about oftentimes. Okay, which is possessive and controlling. Yes?
So for the opposite side, is it like wrong to not be jealous whatsoever, like to just not?
Not at all.
Like, are you like neglecting something if you're not the kind of person who gets, you know what I mean? Or should there be like a certain degree of jealousy there or whatever?
I believe if there's complete trust, then their jealousy shouldn't be present. In an ideal world. Now clearly sometimes we give others the reason to not trust and to be jealous. I think we have time for one or two more questions if there are any.
I just want to say that with the jealousy, like, there's a difference between jealousy and just appropriateness. Like sometimes, like if like there was a girl, she's on a date with the guy, and then the guy, there's a good-looking waitress that comes, and the guy's hitting on the waitress while he's on a date with her. So would you say that she's jealous, or is that just completely inappropriate? Like, that's not.
It's like
disrespect, right?
It is.
Yeah. So it's just. But I think also the jealous. So it's a little so. But the question is also like, I think like a lot of times the deeper underlying thing is the more important thing. That like why is this person jealous? Is this person insecure about something? Because that insecurity, I'm not saying they are necessarily insecure, but if there is an insecurity, that insecurity is manifesting itself in jealousy, and definitely down the line will manifest itself in so many other things. Like, so it's not.
Jealousy can be really possessive to a person, and I've had friends where they would get jealous. Like when I was in high school or college, my best friend, when he was seeing someone, she would get jealous if he was hanging out with us. Right? Very unhealthy, right? It was very, and she was basically saying, I love you, I want to spend time with you, why are you not spending time with me, right? There was a possessiveness there on his time. And I think she didn't have a healthy view of what a relationship should look like, to be fair. Any other comments? We have time for one more.